Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, you have arrived to the conversation that'll end all conversations. The Soulcast with your host, Happy Bones. And now, without further ado, let's get in that crazy head. Here's Happy Bones.
What's going on, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls out there in the interweb around the world? This is episode 21 of the Soulcast, and we have my good friend, Mr. Alamo's, hanging out with us today.
Chilling.
How you doing, Alamo?
I'm blessed, man. How about yourself, Woodrow?
I'm just like you, dog. Blessed to the hilt, son.
That's the truth, man.
Just to let everybody know who Alamo is, like if nobody, like pretend like nobody knows who you are. Who are you?
That's a deep question.
I know, right? I know. I mean, like, do we really know who any of us are?
I actually had a guy ask me that one time in Anchorage, Alaska, man, and it was like one of the hardest questions I think I had to ever answer. Because you always start like, well, I do this. And it's like, no, that's not what I'm asking you. Like, who are you, man?
Right.
I'm a definitely an eclectic individual, man. A man of many hats.
That's true.
Today
that's
I got
true.
my happy hat on, though.
I like that, too.
I wore that for you.
I like that.
Man, to answer that question, Woody, I like to consider myself a pretty cool dude, really.
Right. All around artistic type fellers.
That's true. It's true.
He be spinning records, messing with music. He also bartends, which is an art in itself. You can find him at the Metro downtown Augusta.
Love that place.
Me too.
That was the first place I ever came to when I moved down here from Chicago.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and I've been there ever since.
That's cool. That's cool. Yeah, it's one of the better spots down here, especially if you're a day drinker like me.
Yeah. Professionals.
Yeah, I love going down there, and it's like old Trusty. You know that she's going to be there. But just recently, they did some painting on the ceiling, and I went by there, and I was ready, man. I was ready for the Metro, and I get there, and it smells like paint in the place, and they're like, "We're not closed. We're open. We're not opening until like 4 or 5." And I was like, "Bummer."
Yeah, it ruins the day. Like, now what?
So where'd you originally come from?
Man, I've been all over. Grew up in Chicago for the most part, and
I love that city. Yeah,
it was. I got a kind of love-hate relationship with it, man. A lot of bad experiences, and
I had a bad experience.
The undertow there is just ridiculous, man. The heroin's just it's ridiculous, man. I lose people every day, but I was up in Alaska for a while. I mean, I've been all over. I grew up in Chicago. Ended up moving to Austin back in like '93. And that kind of started like my music career down there. Like I went down there and it was like, wow, man. I started doing college radio. Then I started booking shows and built a little recording studio. Just kind of evolved and got into the nonprofit work. And I mean, it was just crazy some of the stuff I was doing down there. And then I decided one day, man, like I'm going to Alaska, man. Screw this. I'm done. Bush got in the office. I'm like, it's time to go.
Right.
So spent a couple of years up in Alaska. Decided to go back to school, went to recording school down in Tempe, Arizona. Then I decided, well, you know what? I'm going to go back to Chicago, man. Like, I'm a grown boy now. I'm a big boy.
Yeah.
It's not going to get me this time. Went back, and I was like, man, I got to get out of here. So I ended up coming down here. I dig it. This place is chill, man. It's got a lot of possibilities. Yeah,
I like it, too. It's laid back. I've been a lot of places myself, and I always end up coming back here. I love it here. The cost of living is ridiculous.
Yeah, you can't beat it. You can't beat it.
And I had a bad experience in Chicago. I was in Chicago like 92 or 93, somewhere around there. I was a young buck. And I was in the Chicago bus depot, and I had put and it's a big fucking depot, and I put my fucking guitar right by my leg, and I had it touching my leg. And I don't know how they got away with it, but somebody come over and just picked it up right beside me and started walking into the crowd. And there were so many people, on the floor. It was no way for me to see it or catch it. I mean, dude was gone.
Yeah.
And man, it felt like somebody stole my girlfriend, dude.
I hear you.
And the bad thing was I was busking to make a living at that point. And I'd do shows in clubs from here, here and there, but for most of the part, my money was coming from busking.
Yeah.
I had like $90 in my pocket at the time and a bus ticket, and I was like, fuck. So I went to Minneapolis and ended up buying a little acoustic, like fucking Horner or something like that. It was like an $80 guitar. And then I ended up going out that day in St. Paul and sat outside the bus station there and played and ended up making my $80 back just like that. But
it's a good blues song.
Yeah, I know, right? I didn't think about that. Yeah. Lost my guitar in Chicago, ended up in Minneapolis, the coldest motherfucker on the planet.
That place, man.
God damn.
My mom gave me shit when I moved to Alaska. She's like, it's freezing up there. I'm like, man, it's like 80 degrees. You're the one with all the snow right now.
Dude, I don't know how I did it, but the winter in Minneapolis was like, I didn't even want to go outside, man.
No, it's miserable. That's why I got those catwalks going between the downtown. Yeah, that tripped me out.
Yeah, they have some in like St. Paul going underneath the ground too.
Yeah,
and that's pretty freaking cool. Now, what was the coldest it ever got up there in Alaska?
I read a lot of Jock London, man. That kind of it perversed my brain. So I was living in Anchorage, and I was like, man, I don't like this place. I'm here to get out, So I moved out to Denali, and man, the reality of being out in the middle of nowhere, man, that's some scary shit, dude. One winter it got down to -50, and it was when we lost everything, man. The dogs froze, the cabin froze. It was like the realest adventure I've ever had.
Whoa.
You realize, like, man, I'm gonna die today, or I'm gonna eat you. I actually told my roommate, I'm like, dude, this is going 2 ways. Like, we're dying, or somebody's getting ate, man. So no hard feelings.
Damn. So, I mean, how'd you keep yourself warm? I mean, were you in the cabin, and is it fire that was the only thing keeping you warm?
Yeah, we had it's an old Greer oil tank, and it just drips oil, so you can kind of set it to where it'll at least keep a fire going. A pretty good stockpile of wood, but that, shit gets real quick. You don't realize, walk out one day and you're like, oh yeah, man, we're out of wood. It's February, we're out of wood, and we were far enough off the road where it's like, you can't get in there. It was like walking and skiing back and forth, so shit got real quick.
Holy shit. And I was in Washington State not too long ago, and I went through it was the end of the winter, but it was still a lot of snow up there, and I went through this place called White's Pass, I think it's called, and man, I saw these little cabins off the road, like, up the side of a mountain, and they're just covered in freaking snow, and you can see there's just like a little dugout trail where somebody's living there, and, and I'm like, how in the fuck do they do that shit? Because I can't stand the fucking cold, man.
Yeah, it's a trip, man. I think the hardest thing for me was like having no communication with people. Like, I had one person to talk to, and I didn't like him very much. And it's like, but like, I came back into the city, man. I was weird, dude. Like, I'd go into the bar, and like, my vibe was just so high and intense. People they wouldn't look at their, man, that guy's gonna kill somebody, he's gonna freak out.
Yeah.
And it was so hard to like readjust to society again after being out there for like a year, man. It was,
damn.
It's interesting. Like, I got to the point where like I would think things and actually thinking I was speaking. Like, I'd go in to get a beer, and I'd be thinking, like, man, I want a Guinness. And the guy would just be, like, looking at me like, can I help you? I'm like, yeah, you didn't hear me? He's like, man, you ain't said nothing, dude. So, I mean, it was really hard to adjust to society again. Man.
Whoa.
It tweaks you out. That's why I think a lot of those guys are crazy.
I wonder how, see, that's the thing about that movie Castaway.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, that part in the movie where he looks at the glass with the ice in it, and he's like, just like that, you know? He's like, the things you don't think about when you're out on a deserted island because you've been taking it for granted for so long.
Totally.
And then those cubes of ice just changed his world. It's like, what the fuck?
Makes you appreciate life, man. It really does.
It's insane. I remember one time being caught in a snowstorm, and the lights had went out, and it was literally like 2 or 3 days, and it was, I don't know, fucking 2 degrees Fahrenheit outside or some shit like that, 10 degrees or whatever. And I was with 4 other guys, and they acted like it wasn't shit, and because they were all from up north. But me being from Georgia, the first time that it started snowing, and it didn't stop for 3 days, and then in St. Paul it's kind of hilly like San Francisco.
Yeah.
And people, the first day of snow, people are going down it's like a pinball machine. The car's coming down the hill. It starts to slide us ding, 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 ding off of all these cars. Then the guy behind him is like, oh, I can make it. And he does the same thing. And I'm like, how long have y'all been living in this motherfucker? You know? But they're like, that's why we got insurance.
Yeah.
But everybody up there has plows on the front of the truck. And I'm like, God damn, y'all.
Spike tires and shit.
But I also watched this show on AMC called Hell on Wheels. You know that show?
Yeah, the trucker show. Isn't it?
Man, I look at that. It's a Western. It's a Western. And I look at how they lived back in the 1800s, and it's insane to me because that's like hard living. You know what I'm saying? Those guys walked into a saloon and asked for, a shot of whiskey, and that whiskey's always hot. You ain't getting it cool. And it's probably made from some fucking mash out in the middle of the fucking desert. And then their lifestyle and everything. Yeah. Have you ever looked at anything like that? And I do that with pirate movies too, when they're out on the ocean on a ship. Yeah. Like, how hard would that really be? Because you can't really tell from watching a movie.
Yeah, I hear you on that.
But you actually went up there and did it. It's like some Into the Wild shit.
Yeah, it's actually, I've been on that road, man, on Stampede Trail. It's really neat, man. I've actually smoked in that bus. It's a trip, man. That guy just made a stupid mistake. That's all it really was. He just went out there at the wrong time and didn't realize it. But, I mean, when you're in the elements like that, anything can happen at any minute. And there's been days I've been on day hikes just being like, hey, man, I'm just going to go run up this hill for, 2 or 3 hours. I'll be back down and be stuck on that fucker for like 9-10 hours being like, man, this ain't right. You never know, man. Life, it's a trip, and it's a blessing to live. That's for sure.
Yeah, I think after something like that, I'd be like, holy shit, I can't forget that experience, man, because it makes you appreciate everything and kind of live a little bit more.
Yeah, it does.
Now, let's get to some music.
Yeah, man. I love music. Music is my ultimate passion in life.
Whenever you were a kid, because for me, like the first time hearing music and hearing songs, the first time being conscious of it, I remember specifically being in the back of my dad's car, and he had like an old Duster or something like that, but he had a really rockin' Pioneer stereo with some fucking 6x9s in the back. And so we're riding down the road, and Deep Purple comes on, Smoke on the Water.
Nice.
And all I wanted to do was hear it over and over and over again. That first opening riff, ching, ching, ching. And so I was like, man, I asked my dad. I was like, how do they do that stuff? I mean, how was your experience whenever you were first discovering music?
Man, I can't actually say when the first time I heard music. I remember my first records I ever bought. Like my mom always had records. Like that's what she listened to. Mine too. And like her boyfriends always played guitar or were in a band. They were bikers and musicians. Right. Was all I was surrounded with. So it was like shit, almost from the time I was born, it's been music. I remember it was like my 4th birthday, and my mom's like, well, what do you want? And I'm like, man, I want AC/DC, man. Like, I want my own turntable. I want a record. So she bought me a record player. And she took me down. We were living in Conroe, Texas, and she took me down. It was kind of like Walmart then, but they had everything, man. Guns, records, 8 tracks, man, everything. So I was sitting there, and I got Molly Hatchet, Foreigner 4, and AC/DC. And those are like the first records I bought. And from then on, it was just like music. And I always wanted a guitar. So for years, I was asking her for a guitar. So she wouldn't get it. She's like, you ain't going to stick with it. I wanted to play drums, honestly. That's all I wanted to do. I was always beating on shit, man.
Yeah.
I get like, quit beating on the goddamn wall. Quit beating on the floor. And I'm always like, and she's like, I want a drum set. She's like, I'm not getting you a goddamn drum set. You drive me crazy as it is beating on shit already.
Right.
So I kept like going, man, I want a drum set. So I had to settle. So my great grandma was like, all right, baby, what do you want? What do you want for Christmas? I'm like, man, I want a guitar and a harmonica. Gives me the Sears catalog, which was like a Bible when we were kids, I can't remember. That was the first
Sears Roebuck.
Man, you just like sit there for hours like, I want that. I don't even know what half the shit was. And I was like, man, I really want this guitar. And she's like, that's too expensive. Pick out another one. And the one I wanted was actually a Carlos Santana neck through the body koa wood, man, in the Sears fucking catalog.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, it was like, I ended up finding the guitar years later, man. It's like 60 pounds, So she ended up buying me this little Silvertone Strat, and I jammed on that thing, man, from 6 until about 15 till I could actually afford to get like a real guitar.
That sounds good to me. It's good whenever you're that age and you find something like that and you grab a hold of it.
Oh, yeah.
And you just...
Music, I mean, like, music is just, man, and I've been collecting records since then. You know, since 4 years old, I've had records.
We are going to take a quick break real quick, and I'm going to thank my sponsors, and we'll be right back. All right, I got to restart the camera. We can just keep going. We're on a good start.
Yeah, I can't honestly...
All right. Good. All right, we are back, and I remember, I don't remember the first time that I heard music, because I remember music was going on all the time in our house, and like you, I grew up around musicians and bikers too, and they were always sitting around the living room, smoking a joint, listening to music, and just fucking bullshitting. Now, whenever I first heard Smoke on the Water, it affected me because, I don't know, that riff, there was just something about that riff, and then we ended up going to I had an older sister that was married, and we went over to her house, and she had kind of a cool husband at the time, and I asked him about it. I was like, you know that song? And then my sister liked it too, and so we both were like, it goes like this. Yeah. And so he's like, oh yeah, I know that song. Pulls out the Deep Purple album and puts it on his fucking, he had one of those big, it looked like a dresser drawer.
Like the console stereo.
Yeah, the console stereo. And he fucking put that bitch on, and we just made him play the opening riff over and over and over again. And he did it. And I don't know if I would have had the patience for it, me myself, in his position, but, and then there's a lot of songs over the years that affected me like that, like, Rolling Stones, Times on My Side, Ain't Got No Satisfaction, Hotel California affected me a lot, especially because of the ending, the solo at the end is insane. And then Freebird affected me too for the same reason, solo at the end. Because, as far as the rest of the music, I don't give a shit. I skip to the damn solo. And then, Pink Floyd was a big one. Because at the time, I was born in 75. And Dark Side of the Moon hit hard, So for that, whenever I was around 5-6 years old, I remember me and my dad would sit in the room, and he had this big old stereo. And he'd play Dark Side of the Moon, and it had the level, lights.
Watching
and we'd turn out all the lights and just watch the level lights, and Dad would be stoned in the mug.
I think, man, mine was Riders on the Storm. My mom was visiting her friend, and I was down in the basement by myself with the headphones on, and it was just this bitchin' thunderstorm outside, man. And I'm, 5-6 years old, just laying down there trying to kill time. My mom's up partying with her friend, and I put the headphones on and just laid back on the couch, like I said, with the lights off, man, just kind of watching it.
Yeah.
And between the intimacy of the music from the Doors, the headphones, and the storm, I think that was when music created my first memory. When I can always listen to that song and go right back to being a little kid laying on the couch, man.
Definitely. That's the beautiful thing about music, man. And I'm sure you're probably like me, because sometimes if you listen to radio at all, which I do listen to classic radio every now and again, and you might hear a song, like Bob's pretty good about this, 93.9. They'll have a song that you ain't heard in years, and they just pop up, and you're like, oh shit,
that was my jam.
Yeah, man. And you remember that. I can remember smells from the time that this song came out. I can remember who I was with as far as romantically, all kinds of shit.
And I think that's why I collect records, is because it's I can put on Jane Says, and I can remember on every chick I've laid with, or people I've drove around with getting high. It's such an amazing power. I think a lot of people don't get music like we do. They think, oh, that's cool. I love that new Nickelback song.
Oh yeah.
But they don't absorb the depth of music.
You hit the nail on the head with that one, because I was fussing about that with I think it was Kenny George after the show we did a couple of weeks ago, and he's a country artist, and country nowadays is so cliche and it's formulated, but really all of it is, especially the pop.
Yeah, there's always a formula.
And what's funny is that a lot of people don't realize the science behind music, but there's a big deal with key and tone and tempo and melodies. Your brain is affected by this stuff, and over so many years they have studied this. And those guys who know the radio, they know exactly the formula to use. So those people that listen and eat that shit up, they're not like us, because I hate to say it, but they're listening to shit that was on the radio 20 fucking years ago over and over again.
Puff did a good job. I mean, that's how Puff Daddy got huge, man. Was just taking shit that, like, he's like, hey, man, my demographic right now has no clue what they're listening to, so I'm going to take Led Zeppelin. They don't even know who this guy is. I'm gonna take a number one hit that happened 20 years ago and make a number one hit.
Yep. And it about made me. I puked up in my mouth a little bit whenever I saw. Oh my god,
man! I was over at a buddy's house a couple of weeks ago. We were barbecuing, and he lives right across the street from Lake Olmsted, my neighborhood. I love that neighborhood.
Me too.
A lot of great artists and people moving in there. It's nice to see regentrification. But so I'm sitting there at my buddy's house in the pool. And there's like this party going on over at the baseball stadium. Well, I didn't know Florida Georgia Line. I don't know who these guys are.
Right?
I don't listen to that type of radio.
Yeah, me neither.
So then I start hearing Nelly, and I'm like going to my buddy. I'm like, what the hell's Nelly doing over there? He's like, that's his band. And I'm like, wait a minute, Nelly's got a country band, and like that blew my mind. Like, I'm still speechless. That just like I puked a little bit in my mouth.
Yeah,
like a part of my music soul passed away at that point. I've only got 8 music lives left.
Yeah, I know, dude. I fussed about that with Kenny George too, because the mixing of the country and the hip hop, they call it hick hop. Yeah. I just don't get it, man. I just don't get it. But then again, like the Lax comes to the Coyotes and packs that bitch out. There's bitches outside the door trying to get in.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what in the hell?
Yeah, we've got an interesting music scene. When good music comes, nobody comes out, and then you like that Florida Georgia Line, there was thousands and thousands of people.
Dude, Joe Bonamassa comes to Bell Auditorium, and, I don't like to badmouth Augusta. I really don't. But what the hell is wrong with you people? Yeah. Because let me tell you something. Joe Bonamassa is one of the best guitarists that has ever walked the planet. And I happen to know for a fact that was probably one of the best sounding concerts in the Bell in years, literally in years, because those people know what the fuck they're doing. Yeah. And they do that shit in huge 50,000 seat arenas, and he sells them bitches out.
Yeah.
Okay. I've seen him in Atlanta at the Phillips, and it was sold out 3 nights in a row. And it's same fucking thing. He comes down here for one night. He doesn't sell out. The tickets are ridiculously priced, and it's fine, because I was willing to pay $120 to see Joe Bonamassa here, because he's literally right down the street from my house. I don't have to go to Atlanta and get a hotel room.
Don't got to drive. You can walk back and forth.
Yeah, I walk down to the Bell and walk back to my house, and I just couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it. And then whenever I would talk to people around here, man, Joe Bonamassa's come to the Bell. Can you believe that? They're like, who the fuck is that?
Yeah.
And I'm like, are you kidding me? Yeah. Like, do you listen to music at all? But honestly, and I was saying this to another guest a couple of weeks back, is that type of music needs a host. Yeah. Like, it needs somebody like me or you to say, hey, check this out.
It and we get I'm amazed at some of the shows that do come through town. Like, I've seen Fishbone, and like I said, I've seen them in packed like 50,000 seat arenas. And then
Skindred came to Sky City, and it was one of the baddest shows I ever saw. And that dude the front guy is just like on another level.
Yeah,
insane.
I love Sky City, man. I think what Coco's doing over there is great. And there's a lot of promoters popping up in town. And this year alone, like, I've seen some of the most amazing acts come through. And it's like it inspires me, because it's like, okay, I'm a part of it. I'm a part of the scene. We're making it happen. We're the ones that are putting the flyers out there. It's our stickers that you see when you go to the bar. And I think that's cool, because it is coming.
Yeah.
It is coming. Like, Widespread's come through. Humphreys has come down. Like, you got Ed Turner coming up, man, which is going to be another phenomenal show.
Oh, I love it when he does shows, man. It's really fun. I Phillips in with him, Orion's in with him, and Betamy's in with him this go around. And I know all those guys real well, and they know me real well, and they know my talent. And I told Philip, I was like, man, you tell Ed if he needs a singer for number 9, I'm down with that shit. I sing the shit out of some Beatles. I love the Beatles, man. How do you feel about the Beatles?
I love the Beatles too, man. I learned a really interesting fact, and I never really, I like the Beatles music, but I never really realized how they influence the way we hear and record music. The Beatles are one of the first ones that, you know, hey, we got 8 tracks, fuck it, we're going to use all of them. Yeah. I'm going to take track 7 and play it backwards. I mean, they changed the whole recording process. They also
were the first ones that took those 8 tracks, they would bounce those 8 tracks down, take another 8 tracks, bounce those down, and layer that shit. Yeah. One of the first people to do that shit. And, of course, George Martin had a lot to do with that, but...
One of the first bands to ever sample, too.
Exactly. And then the way... This is why you have musicians that come up like that pop out of nowhere, is because they were listening to, you know, Johnny Lee Hooker and you know, Muddy Waters and Howlin' Wolf, and you know, they were actually seeking this stuff out. Yeah. And then they were looking at the white guys like Elvis, and you know, the guys doing all the rock and roll, and whenever they absorbed all that stuff, because where they were at the time, it was very hard to get a hold of those albums and those records, like almost insanely difficult. Yep. And I remember a story from the anthology, the Beatles anthology, where Paul's talking about they didn't know how to do the B chord, and the infamous B chord was eluding them, you know. Mm-hmm. So they found out through the grapevine that this dude, like 3 towns over, fucking knows the B chord. So they get on the bus and they go 3 towns over. They learn the B chord from this dude. They come back and teach all their friends the fucking B chord. They're like, here it is, bring, and they're all standing around like, whoa, you know.
They couldn't Google it.
I know. I'm like, you know, and that's why I would kill to be fucking, you know, to kind of live back in that time whenever music was.
Yeah, because it was elusive, man. You had to, you know,
you had to seek it out.
Yeah, I mean,
it's not like you had iTunes and just look up anything you want. You know?
I mean, dude, if I would have had the internet growing up as a kid, I would be dangerous at this point in my life. At 40 years old, I would be a virtuoso. I mean, it's
insane. I still love YouTube because I you know, you can write how to play such and such on acoustic, and you'll have 100 things pop up. Yep. And you know, I'm not the most accomplished guitar player, but I'm a good strummer and I keep good time, which is rare these fucking days. Yep. You know, I'm the Tom Petty of Augusta, Georgia, bitches. Nice. But you know, whenever you have that passion, that drive to go and seek something out on that level, to where you're willing to get grounded for 2 months, and getting on a bus at 13 years old and going 2 towns over to find out a B chord, you know. Yeah.
I mean, that was cool. It's like, you know, that's how I heard a lot of my music, was like, I'd be like, what's that, man? What do you got? What do you'd be on the bus? You'd be like, man, what are you jamming out to? And then the guy would be like, here, put this on. And you'd be like, fuck, I got blown away again.
Dude, I this guy that used to be roommates with my brother Joe Bone, we went over to his house. We were drinking. He put some music on his computer, and this was like back 92, 93, you know. And he was like, I heard this music and it was a bass, a baritone saxophone, drums, and this guy's fucking haunting voice. Morphine. And I was like, who the fuck is that? And he's like, that's Morphine from Boston. And I was like, holy fucking shit.
Yeah, that's sax, man. Just like, that was a great trio.
Dude, oh my God. Trio. They made some of the greatest music. And to this day, I can put on a Morphine album. It's just like Pink Floyd. Even if you're not in the mood to listen to it, you will be once you put it on.
Yeah.
It's insane.
I remember I was I was like 15 or 16, and I got an invite to go to Washington, D.C. to do this poetry lecture. And I was really into punk rock at that time. You know, like, I like all kinds of music, but punk rock was really just my shit at that point. You know, I was a pissed off kid. It was like, it fit, man. Yeah. So I go to D.C., you know, and hanging out with this really hot chick that, you know, was my host. A friend of my uncle's hooked me up with it. You know, get to go to D.C. Space, and I'm hanging out, and she's like, hey, you know who that guy is? I'm like, no. She's like, that's Ian MacKay's little brother. That's Alan MacKay. I was like, yeah, you're kidding me. So I could go shake his hand, you know, like, wow, man, fucking starstruck, you know, and she's like, well, what are you doing tonight? I'm like, well, you're taking me around town. She's like, we're going to go catch this show, man. So she takes me to see Nirvana and Tad you know, and it was Tad's release for, I think, 8-Way Santa, and I had never heard of Nirvana, man. And, like, got my ass handed to me, man. Came out of there with a broken nose. I was rocking so hard, and I was just like, these guys fucking rock, man. Bought the album at the show, and I got home, and I was, like, so excited. I was like, man, I'm invited a couple buddies over, smoking. I'm like, you got to hear this shit, man. Put the record on. We all just sat back like, fuck. Like, that's it, man, you know? And it was, and to be able to, like, hey, I'm gonna turn you on, dude. And music always turns you on, you know? It's never stops, man.
That's why whenever I was introduced to Morphine, which is still my favorite band, I probably would be hard-pressed to know who they are if I wasn't introduced to them by that dude. Because, like, you know, Alamo knows who Morphine is. I know a couple of other people that know who Morphine is. But for the most part, nobody fucking knows who fucking Morphine is. And whenever I say, I love Morphine, they're like, yeah, I bet you do, you stuff, drug addict, you fucking drug addict. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back. Just restart that computer.
Kelly says she wants me. Ridiculous.
Yeah,
I like music like that. You know,
it surprises you.
Yeah, I like in-your-face music, but I think like some of my favorite music is you know, the chill out groove type.
All right, we back. Yeah, I like, you know, and it's even like, okay, the thing about Nirvana is the melody, man. If you can find the melody, and he was a very good hook writer. Yeah, that's all. It doesn't, because think about it. These mainstream kids that were listening to Nirvana, he was talking about stuff that was in his life and his strife and his, you know, hardships.
Trials and tribulations.
And you know what trips me out about that is if you watch the Nirvana Unplugged and they play that song Dumb, I think I'm dumb, and at the end where it rings out, he says, I think I'm dumb that last time, and the crowd just goes crazy. And I thought to myself, it was such a weird moment, because I thought to myself, that doesn't seem like a clapping moment. That seems like a I feel you, brother moment. Not a, oh, yes, you're so awesome, you know.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I think that I might be feeling that way because maybe he was feeling that way a little bit. Like, you know, like I just poured my heart out to y'all and y'all think it's just this whole lottie-dottie, oh, that's awesome kind of thing.
Yeah.
He had to have some crazy mixed emotions about it. But it's just like Metallica when the Black Album came out. Now, I was big on Injustice for All because that was a bad fucking album, you know. Shorty straw. Oh, man, I love that shit. And I don't listen to it that much anymore, but whenever I'm cleaning house, I like to listen to some heavy rockin' music. Oh, yeah. And Sad But True is my shit.
Yeah, that's a good song.
That song, man, the breaks where it goes, ta, 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 and then they stop. And then Lars brings it back in.
I just bought Garage Days Revisited the other day, man.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, and Kill 'Em All. They're in my car right now, man. So that's what I've been rocking. Wendy's like, you just, like, well, I bought that and I bought Mazzy Star, and I've been rocking both of them, man.
Going back and forth?
I love Mazzy Star. She's like, you'll have Mazzy Star, I'll get in the car, then it's like fucking Kill 'Em All blast. And I'm like, hey, man, my mood changed.
Right? Hell, man, when Ministry came out in 92 with... or 91, I think it was, with the Psalm 69 album.
Yeah.
Holy shit, that shit right there freaked me out too. Yeah. I saw them live at the second annual Lollapalooza, the one that with Pearl Jam and Soundgarden and Ministry and Red Hot Chili Peppers was on that bill. Jesus and Mary Chain, Ice Cube was there.
See, I grew up with a lot of that. We used to have this place called Wax Trax Records, and that's where a lot of that stuff was recorded. It was in Wax Trax Studios. I mean, it was like a block from my house. That's where I'd go buy my records and hang out, like KMFDM, all that stuff, man. Like that's like what I grew up with. Those were like my neighbors most of the time. Like Sasha used to live downstairs from me.
That's cool.
You know, so it was man. So like the early industrials, like that, I mean, that's like we were into the punk rock scene, but like Chicago has such like a killer music scene back then. It was like, you know, it was Ministry, you know, Thrill Kill Called. And then at the same time you had like the bigger bands coming out, like Smashing Pumpkins was just starting to break, you know, and it was like
9 Inch Nails with Pre-Hit Machine was coming out,
and like it was like that, man. That era in Chicago, man, like there was nothing like it, you know. Like one of my favorite bands at the time was Naked Reagan, which is a Chicago band. Like Wendy and I are actually going in September to Riot Fest because it's like Slayer's playing Hello Eights for front to back, Sam Hain's playing, like all these great classic bands. I'm just like, dude, that's my bucket list right there.
I'm like, all in one show.
I was like, dude, there's 60 bands paying for $300 $100, fuck it, pack the car, we're going. I'm like, Kenny, if you're not getting me off work, I quit, man. He's like, no, go, man. Rock, just bring me a shirt.
Right? Yeah.
It's like, I'll never get to see any of these guys again,
Yeah, absolutely.
Wu-Tang Clan's even playing.
Holy shit.
That's
insane, man. I remember Ice Cube was playing, or was doing his set, and Pearl Jam was supposed to come on right after him, and this guy came by, and he had this big gallon jug of, like, Kool-Aid, and he's like, you want some, bro? And I was like, I don't know you, man. And he's like, trust me, you want some if you want to go on a trip, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, oh, really? It's like that. Electric Kool-Aid. So I drank some of it, and then he says, no, it's not electric Kool-Aid. It's mushroom Kool-Aid. And I'd never had mushroom Kool-Aid before, and it was very good.
It tastes.
And then next thing I know, I'm standing right at Lakewood Amphitheater, right there where the seating part ends and the grass starts, and I'm standing on this like little 2-foot like fucking cement wall, and the security guard's yelling at me to get down, and I thought he was yelling at somebody else. And next thing I know, what's his name from Pearl Jam, the lead singer?
Eddie Vedder.
Eddie Vedder is being carried right by me. I'm like standing up over him on the concrete thing, and the crowd's carrying him because I was so high that the crowd, I was over, like my waist was at their heads.
He was surfing.
And he was crowd surfing all the way to the back, and he comes around and he looks up at me and he's like, what's up? And he keeps on going, and I was like tripping on mushrooms going, and the security guard's still yelling at me, and I was like, what the fuck just happened? And about that time, the security guard grabs my arm, and I was like, whoa, dude. I love moments like that, man.
Yeah, we were at Wani Music Festival, man. If you ever get a chance to go down there, man.
I've heard so much about that.
That place is such the greatest vibe, dude. We went down there. It was like the Allman Brothers, Leon Russell, Widespread, just another amazing.
Andy from Mason Jars talks about the Wani Festival.
Yeah, and like I'm sitting there, on mushrooms, and I'm looking at Wendy. I'm like, okay, I got to go, man, because Claypool's doing the Dang Diddy Trio over there in like 5 minutes. So I'm packing out my shit, and Michael Sante from Spearhead's playing, So and like he used to come into the radio station I did down in Austin all the time in the early '90s. So I'm sitting there, so I got kind of a rapport with him, man.
Right.
So you're a star, cool, do your thing, you're jamming. Yeah. I got to go see Claypool, man. So I'm packing up my shit, and I'm getting all my backpack. I'm like, all right, babe, I'll meet you over there. And next thing I know, like, I'm getting a hug, man. And I'm like, what the fuck? And I turn around. I'm like, oh, what's up, Michael? He's out. He came out to the crowd to give me a hug. And I'm like, man, give him a hug. And Wendy's like, that was fucking nuts. I was like, and I'm like, I don't know if it was the mushrooms or like he remembered me. I'm like, but either way, it was one of those mushroom artist moments where you're just like, man, that was fucking rad.
Yeah, I love that, man. I have a few things. I guess it's just, you have those moments in life that are like those defining moments in your life.
It's like a checkpoint. Almost.
Yeah, and a lot of that happened in my younger years with the musicians that I looked up to around me, like my cousin Judge, who actually plays lead guitar in the band now. And I think that if I could really look back, that after my younger days where I was influenced so much by the things that my dad and Judge would say about music, then later on it was things that would happen that reinforced that I was doing the right thing.
You're on the right path.
Yeah. Because it's things like one time I played in Atlanta, and Mike Galaxy from Indie Virgin Records happened to be there. And he came up to me, and this was way back in the early 90s, and he's like, do you have any CDs? I said, yes. He said, can I have one? I said, yeah. And I gave him a CD, and he was like, this is what I'm going to listen to on the plane back to L.A. And I was like, oh, you're from L.A. and blah, blah, blah. And I'm talking to him. He's like, yeah, my name's Mike Galaxy. And he's like, I'm with Indie Virgin Records. And I was like, what?
Yeah.
And I thought like some crazy shit was about to go down. Like, he's like, I'm bringing you to L.A.
We're doing it.
Yeah. And like the hair on the back of my neck stands up, and he's like, you're not quite there, but keep going.
Right.
Because this is exactly what they're going to be looking for in 10 years. And I was like,
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm not. Yeah, I didn't miss the bus. Man.
Right. But I'm getting there, Yeah. And then now we're in the middle of recording, the first album that I plan to release as Happy Bones, and it's like I'm starting from zero.
Yeah.
But all those years prior was preparing me for this moment.
Exactly. And it's like I don't think you get a lot of musicians that go in there and don't realize that it is that like it's sweat equity, man. Like you've put your time and energy into it, and that's with doing your own record, man. People don't get it. It's like you're creating something from nothing.
Nothing, yeah.
You know, you've taken Woody's energy and you've put it into something physical material that you can put in your hand, put in your tape player.
And I can even say, this is me.
Yeah.
You know,
and this is my energy.
Years and years of me doing this to make this happen.
Right.
This little thing.
Yeah.
And it feels good to me to be in that place now because, you know, I've been doing a lot of traveling the past couple of years, and honestly, man, it is so refreshing to come back to Augusta,
and chill,
walk down Broad Street, and have 15 people go, "Happy Bones, what's up?" You know, people I don't know.
Yeah.
Whereas that doesn't happen in other cities. So I've kind of made a place for myself here, kind of made a bed for myself here in Augusta, which from what I understand, a lot of people, when they hear me say that, they're like, well, shit, you can do that anywhere now because Augusta's hard as fuck.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's more, I'm not selling my music so much. I'm selling me as a brand. Me.
You're the package.
Yeah, I'm the brand. So that's why I started doing the podcast, because, I mean, I just like, you know, talking.
Yeah, you're doing what you do anyway.
Laughing.
We're doing the same thing we do most every time we see each other.
Yeah, exactly. I remember, like, first time I met you, you had been riding with my buddy Nate.
Yeah.
And Nate had gotten that accident where he got a bad weekend. He got mouthy with some people that he probably shouldn't have got mouthy with, and next thing you know, he's in a ditch. But anyway, so I go up and I'm seeing him in the hospital and everything, and he goes, yeah. I was like, well, who were you with? And he was like, I was with Alamo. I don't know what happened to Alamo. I hope he's okay. And I was like, Alamo? Who the fuck is Alamo? and then like maybe a week later, I met you in the metro, and I was like, oh, you're Alamo? Okay, then what's up, man? And we started talking. It was just like, because for me, for some people, if you click like that right off the bat, then it's like, that's my type people. And you know that instantly almost, you know? Yeah. And then I have people that I meet that want to have that click with me.
And try desperately to
get it. They're like, man, hang out. No. And I'm like, I just don't feel it. I'm sorry, man. Yeah. And then they push you to the point where you have to be honest and say, dude, it just don't click with you. Yeah. You're a cool guy. If I see you out, I'll be like, hey, that's what's up. But we're not hanging out. Sorry.
Yeah, friends are acquaintances, you know. And it's like, I mean, I'm blessed to have a lot of friends, and I'm blessed to have. I got a lot of acquaintances.
Well, I do too. But I think the beautiful thing is love, because you right off the bat, you and Wendy were very embracive of me, and then also of the music. And then you invite me to your house early on. Y'all helped me out with the bicycle, and whenever I didn't have a car, and cook me all that food, and we listened to some music, just chilling, man. And what was your compadre that had the Boston accent?
Oh, Marty.
Yeah, Marty. I was talking in a Boston accent. You're pretty wicked fucking good, yo.
Yeah, that poor guy, man. That poor guy ain't a clue. He's one of those people, man. It's like, you know, deep down in your heart, it's like, man, I know it's a good guy, but it's like, dude, you just don't click with anybody.
Yeah, I've got a friend that I've known since high school like that, and he's one of those guys that whenever you talk to him, you think he's the salt of the earth. You think he will give you the shirt off his back if it's going to help you. And in some ways, he is that way. Yeah. But in the long run, he's super selfish and self-absorbed. And all of that is talk. The difference between people that talk the talk and walk the walk is genuine, there's two different people in the world, and some of them walk, some of them talk. Now, the ones that talk, they do a lot of fucking talking, but they barely walk. Mm-hmm. The ones that walk, they don't barely talk. They mostly fucking walking, and those are the people that I want to be with. Yep. You know, it's like Selfridge said. Harry Gordon Selfridge said, "A boss says go, a leader says let's go."
Yep.
So, you know, those are the type of people I click with, and Alamo is definitely one of those people that's like, you know, hey, let's do this, you know, let's go and do this, and then next thing you know, you have a life experience that you're going to carry with you for the rest of your fucking life. Yep. Those friends are valuable, and also those friends are like you know, me and you don't hang out constantly, but when we do see each other, it's like we ain't miss no time. Yeah, you know,
I mean, you always get a hug, man. I always, you know, I see Woody, I'm like, all right, I get my hug today. You know? And then it's I think people need to embrace people, you know. In Chicago, everybody's out to get you. It's like, you know,
cutthroat.
Yeah, and I think, you know, when you come into an environment like this, and like Augusta, you know, it's a small town kind of feel, man. It's like you get the leave the bullshit at the door a little bit, man. You know, like when you say, who's Alamo? Well, I mean, anybody that knows me knows who I am.
Right.
You know, I do different stuff. It's not what I do that defines me. It's like Woody.
Exactly.
You know, somebody mentions Woody, you know, I know exactly what Woody's fucking about.
Right.
You know, and when you get that opportunity to leave the bullshit at the door, it opens that door for so many more possibilities, and it's infinite, man. It's, you know, opportunities are abundant.
This weekend, this is probably a conversation I should do after the break. We're going to take a quick break, and then we'll be right back. All right. Keep this going because this is good. Good. All right, we are back. And right before the break, we started talking about, you know, the friendships and the way that the small town feel in Augusta. It kind of does. You know, you see the same faces downtown, and you have people that you always see downtown. And this is the beautiful thing about this community is that when you find yourself in that place where you can walk down Broad Street and see familiar faces, it's kind of like where you want to be. You don't want to, you know, you don't want to go out to Evans and go to the Mellow Mushroom in Evans. Fuck that.
No, yeah, fuck
you know,
that.
what I want to do is I want to be downtown. And whenever I walk in some place, I'm patronizing most of the time an independent place, you know, in which I love that. And then you see familiar faces. Everybody's friendly. Yep. And then I've got like 5,000 Facebook friends. And so what I love about Facebook is you don't give a fuck what anybody says. I can look on Facebook and I could be smoking a joint at Lake Olmsted or something, and somebody could be like, hey man, I'm riding the bike today. It's a beautiful day. And I'll be like, oh shit, I'm out riding the bike too. Let's meet up. That's a beautiful thing about social networking.
Totally.
Also, I can be sitting in a bar, and I've had this happen so many times. Somebody will walk up to me and they'll be like, hey, are you Happy Bones? And I'll say, yes. And they'll say, I'm your friend on Facebook. And I'll be like, that is cool. It's nice to meet you in person.
Yeah.
Happens all the time. And because, you know, me being, my page is a musician page, so I accept everybody that, you know.
Yeah, you got to get out there, man. You want people to hear your stuff.
Yeah, and it's funny because I got an email from a guy from Egypt. I can't remember the name of the city. Ashra, something like that. Anyway, he was like, if I can afford to get you out here, would you come out here and sing? And I was like, to Egypt? And he's like, yes. And I was like, yeah. So I gave him my booker's information, and I was like, I hope I do get to fucking fly to Egypt to sing. That shit will be cool. But I was in Atlanta. They have a monastery in Atlanta. And they have real monks and everything up there. It's crazy. Wow. And you go into this cathedral, and I couldn't help myself, man. The acoustics in this cathedral was amazing. So I was just like, oh, city, you know. And this monk walks up to me, and he goes, sir, now's quiet time. And I was like, whoa, that's awesome. I was like, because it was so loud.
Sorry, man, I had to do it.
I had to do it. That's a Sacred Heart does me that way, too, man.
Yeah.
Have you ever been in that building?
Yeah, that's a gorgeous building.
It's crazy. The brickwork on that building is just insane.
Yeah, and there's some great architecture, man. Like, Augusta's got such a cool history, and I learn more about it every day. Like, my friend Robert Mullins just wrote a book.
Yeah,
you know, and it's like,
I was actually thinking about getting him on the show.
Man, he's an good friend of mine. Like you say, one of those genuine people, man. You know, guy's a lawyer. You wouldn't really think, like, you know. I told him the other day, I said, I figured out our relationship, Robert. And he's like, yeah, what's that? I'm like, kind of like Hunter Thompson, and you're kind of like my wacky drug deranged lawyer friend, man.
As your lawyer, I advise you to do all of this cocaine, take these Quaaludes, and drive 80 miles an hour down the 66 freeway. Did you see what God did to us, man? I love that shit.
It's a great movie.
It really is. I think that for me, I'm a movie buff, so for me, it's not just music. Like, a lot of it is movie and pop culture, because I remember the first time I saw Reservoir Dogs, I flipped out. I was like, I want to make movies. Because that whole movie is genius, because it's pretty much, it's all dialogue, and it's shot in a fucking warehouse. You know, 90% of the movie's in this little warehouse, and you don't change scenery, and it is one of the most genius movies ever. And what's funny is I Googled movies in one room, And there's an old movie. It's like a black and white movie from like the fucking 30s or some shit. And it is this old black, like ancient mama kind of, big black lady. She's wearing the do-rag and the whole nine. And this black lady stays in this one-room shanty house, and these people from the neighborhood will come around and they'll just have conversations with her. And that's the whole movie. Mm-hmm. But it is so interesting that it keeps you enthralled. And it's just like Reservoir Dogs, just on a really different level, Right. So I'm sitting here thinking, I can make movies. And then Nirvana comes out, and I'm thinking, oh shit, I can make music. And so that's, whenever you have somebody like you hosting what the good music is, and you say, all right, you need to check this out, you need to check this out, you need to check this out, you need to watch these movies, and it blows people's minds. It blows my mind because of the people's reaction to it, and then some of the things like they've never seen True Romance, for instance, and you're like, oh, I gotta show you that. Or I've never seen Easy Rider. Holy shit, you gotta see that. Yeah. Because, these are movies that the endings are not cliche. The storylines are not cliche. Yeah. You don't know what's gonna happen next. And whenever you see what happens next, it blows your fucking mind. Yeah.
It's like I had somebody the other day, you got to go see the new Transformers. I'm like, I haven't seen any of the Transformers. I have no desire to. My level of intellect, I feel, is above that. Not saying that, it's probably a great movie, the special effects, but like, I like some substance to things. Yeah. And especially say, like, Woody tells me, hey, man, you got to go see this movie. And I come back to it, I'm like, man, fuck, Woody, you were right, man. Like, my interpretation is going to be different than yours. My opinion is going to be different than yours. Yeah. And then I might come back and be like, man, Woody, that movie sucked. Right. But at the same time, it's like, you turned me on to something, and I might turn it on to somebody else, be like, man, I watched the movie, but I didn't get it.
Well, that's what I got with Matrix, man. Whenever I first saw The Matrix, I went on this crazy, because I had this theory that was real similar to the Matrix movie. Yeah, I hear you. About life. And,
we're plugged in. Yeah, I got you.
Yeah, so I want to philosophize about shit. Like, the last movie that did that for me was that movie with Leonardo DiCaprio, The Inception, about the dreaming. Holy shit. It took me off on this thing. Like, I'm constantly asking questions in my head about life and why we're here and what we're supposed to be doing. And you see a movie like that, and I'm into, like, practicing lucid dreaming.
Yeah, me too.
And if you are able to get to that level to where you can go, because the movie is, you go into a dream and then you go into someone else's dream. Ooh. And then you start to try to control things in their dream. And it is crazy. Like, the shit, like, they steal secrets from people in their dreams and all kinds of shit. And
let's check that one out.
Yeah, it just blew my mind. It's got that other girl from Juno, the girl that was pregnant in it too. Yeah. She does real good in that movie too. And it's just things like that affect me. And then a lot of times, like, I'll see movies like Ray, for instance. Ray was going to be an independent film, and then all of a sudden, like, Lionsgate bought it or whatever it was, and then it just blew up. And I've seen that fucking movie 10 times. It's one of the best movies ever in the history of movies. And all of my top 5 favorite movies is like The Doors, Eddie and the Cruisers.
I love Eddie and the Cruisers, man. I just bought that record the other day, too,
John Cafferty and the Beaver Brown Band.
And that was such a slap on.
I wonder whatever happened to John Cafferty.
I don't know, man.
That's something I would like to look up. Oh, but we're thinking about doing this. Coco and a couple other people. We were thinking about going to the Get On Up movie and then having a podcast about it and talking about the movie.
That'd be interesting. I remember that day when James Brown died, man. I had just moved back to Chicago and was staying at my grandma's house, man. And I do a lot of hip hop music. That's always been a passion of mine. Mm-hmm. I got a recording studio. I like to make music. Anyway.
Yeah, nobody contributed to hip hop like James Brown.
And exactly. He's one of the most sampled artists ever. And I mean, that's kind of what brought James Brown back.
That is what brought James Brown.
Hip hop brought it back, really. But anyway, Grandma was gone, man, so I was like, I snuck in the liquor cabinet, man, poured me a whiskey Coke, and I go walking in. I don't ever watch TV. To me, I got other things to do. Yeah. Like, I'll put on a record before I'll kick on the TV.
Yeah, fuck that.
So for some reason, I was like, kick on the TV, and I'm just like, what the fuck is this, man? And I sat there for 4 hours watching this. And I mean, if nobody
was watching the homegoing on TV,
yeah, like on
I was
TV,
I was there.
I mean, that was such a fucking production, man. Like, dude, it blew my mind.
Let me tell you something. I was sitting at the house. I live on 3rd and Telfair, and at the time I lived in the same apartment building, and I was watching it from my house, and I was crying, bawling my eyes out because I love that man, and despite his flaws, and I said, fuck it. I'm going down there. And I got in my car, and I had this little Prelude with the fucking sunroof, and I blasted James Brown. Like, you know, one of my favorites is The Big Payback.
Right.
I'm gonna play that shit over and over and over. And so I'm going down the road, I'm blasting that shit. I pull up to the Civic Center. It's packed, because at the time I believe it was the Civic Center. It might have been the James Brown Arena. Anyway, so I pull up, I park, I walk, and I walk in, and there is no place to sit. I literally find one seat that I see is empty, and I'm hoping that nobody's sitting in it, because it's between two old black ladies with their Sunday best on and their big hats. I walk my ass up there crying, sit down in between those two old ladies. They just sat there and cried with me. And it was so surreal to see James Brown's body on display down there in front of the stage, and, you know, Bobby Ray and throwing the cave over, and then Al Sharpton was there, and Jesse Jackson was there, and Michael Jackson was there, and I didn't know any of those people were going to be there, and I was just like, what in the fuck? This is the most surreal moment.
Surreal is, and like I was sitting there on the couch, man, crying, you know, and like just flipping out. Nobody was there. I'm sure my grandma would have been like, fuck, he's on a drug trip again, you know, but I mean, like, that was one of those things, like, spiritually, mentally, physically, and as a musician, like, changed my life. Like, I'll never forget that day. I don't remember when John Lennon died, you know.
I was too young.
I faintly remember my mom, you know, freaking out about it, but, I mean, that changed my life, man, you know, and like, that guy had more costume changes, and man, it was ridiculous.
He actually said to me one time, to my face, he said, he's trying to be me. He ain't me. And laughed.
Wow.
And walked away.
That's awesome.
And to this day, I still put that on my posters as a blurb sometimes. He trying to be me. He ain't me. James Brown.
That's awesome, man.
And then just recently, I got another blurb. You know how I dress with my top hat and everything? Well, it was kind of cool outside. We were at an outdoor arena, and I was doing stagehand work. I'm standing backstage waiting for the show to end so we can start breaking everything down on the stage. Darius Rucker walks off the back of the stage, walks straight up to me. There's 30 stagehands standing around. And he goes, shakes my hand, and he goes, all this that you got going on, I like it. And then walks off.
Nice.
And he's like, thanks, guys, and walks off. And everybody just looks at me like, you uppity motherfucker. You know? Who you think you are, you know?
But it's not who you it's who you are.
Right.
It goes back to that question, you know, like, who are it is. It's who you embody Happy Bones.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I try to walk tall, because I had this realization that none of us are more powerful than anybody else, and none of us are lower than anyone else.
Exactly.
So yeah, Darius Rucker might be a famous musician, and he might be rolling in the dough as far as his bank account goes and his investments, and that's good for him.
That's great.
But I'm perfectly happy with where I'm at. I'm not struggling, you know. I'm happy.
Right.
You know, I ain't got no worries. And at the same time, I own that shit. You know, if you realize how powerful you are, we're eternal souls. I mean, nothing can fucking hurt us. Carbon, you know, And so it's just like you in Alaska, fucking about to freeze to death. You know, that would have just been a new chapter. Yeah. You know, you pass from this body and go on to the next go around.
Yeah. You know, and it's like, you know, even if, like, Darius Rucker, like, you see people like, you know, people they hate. I guess that's the new thing. Quit hating.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh, yeah.
Well, it's like, you know, you can't hate on the guy, because that's Darius Rucker. That's who he is. That's what he's put his energy into becoming.
And that's, you know, another thing, like, people who are doing things, like Morgan here at Greenlight, he's always saying this to me. He's like, well, if ain't nobody hating on you, you're not doing something right.
Doing it right.
You know, and I was like, that's what's up. Because people love to hate on people that's actually doing something. And, you know, I might go out and do something that is crap, but at least I got out there and I fucking tried.
Yeah, you tried. You didn't fail.
Right.
You didn't fail.
Oh, exactly.
There's no such thing as failure.
Failure is nothing more than the path to success for whatever you're doing.
Right.
And it's like, I remember a quote from Michael Jordan. It always sticks out in my head. And he said, I can handle failing. I just can't handle not trying.
Right.
So, people like that are driven to and it's self-drive. It's not, nobody gave Michael Jordan anything. Nobody said, hey, here's this talent. You go and do this. He had to struggle to fucking figure out how to play basketball.
He did. Probably tried golf and it was like, you know what, this ain't my shtick, man. Probably
he tried baseball. I don't know if that was his stick.
Probably owned an acoustic guitar at one point in his life.
Well, tell everybody where they can find you and what you got coming up.
Right on. Well, I wish I was here last week because we did a show at Sky City that was pretty good, man. I got a chance to work with Johnny Holmes, man, and play with the Hornets and stuff. That was cool. That was cool. You can find me on Alamo's Basement on Facebook, man. I kind of don't do the Facebook thing. I'm kind of shy of the social thing. I'm pretty much always around town doing stuff. Always trying to do more stuff. Definitely trying to get out and play a little bit more this year. This last show inspired me. I haven't played since probably 2004.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, so
you got to get back into it.
Yeah, so it's really got me into, to picking up the guitar again and doing a lot of other stuff, man. And, so I'm really hoping to get a lot more, do some more graphics. Got some new shirts coming out, new stickers coming out. They'll be down at the Metro doing the new Metro shirts,
Hell yeah. Well, y'all look out for Alamo. If y'all see him at the Metro or downtown, y'all say hey. And y'all can get in touch with the show at the Soulcast at mail.com. And this was a good conversation, man. I appreciate you being here, brother.
Man. It was just like, there's no beer. That's the only thing that's really different.
Yeah, we'll have to do it again with beer. All right, y'all. We'll see y'all next week.
Peace.
Warning, you will never be the same because you have been listening to the Soulcast with your host, Happy Bones. We'll see you next week.